All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Harsh Kumar. Today is March 2nd, 2024. Today we have a special guest, Abhinav Tirmula, on the Harsh Talks Hockey podcast. I hope I pronounced your name right, but welcome to the show.
No, you got it 100% right, and thanks for having me.
No problem. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit before we get ahead?
Yeah, sure, I guess. I've been a hockey fan ever since I was a little kid. I got out of it for a bit, came back recently, and
Mhm.
yeah, I'm just enjoying the ride that
Good to
the
hear.
Edmonton Oilers have taken me on.
Nice. So we will talk some Oilers hockey and we'll get to some other big news around the league as well. With the trade deadline heating up, this is crunch time. This is where the season gets really, really interesting. We
Oh yeah.
find out who the contenders are and who's not. So, let's before we get into any of the other news, talk to me about your Oilers. Tell me how things have been out west.
I mean, the start of the season was it wasn't great. It was horrible. Like
Yep.
everything that could have went wrong.
Yep.
Besides like Evander Kane and Zach Hyman, it seemed like nobody could score, right?
Hmm.
And they turned everything around after we got the new coach. Penalty kills looked good. It's been slipping recently. And
Yeah.
I mean, the Oilers, their shopping list is basically the same that it's been for a couple of years now, which is, a solid, right, a good number two right-handed defenseman, a top six winger, and a backup goalie, right?
Fair
So
enough, fair enough.
we'll see how
I,
that
I
goes.
don't think I don't think we can stress enough how many teams are looking for a right-handed defenseman.
Oh
That
yeah,
is that is the top of the top for a lot of teams when it comes to, needs and I think there's a pretty hefty premium for some defensemen out there. Um but as we get into it, talk to me a little bit of how the Oilers have been as of late. What's been the story regarding this team, in more recent times over the last couple of weeks, and as we start to make our head, push towards the trade deadline. What's been the outlook of this team? How is Ken Holland gonna take or what is his angle going into this trade deadline?
for sure. You got to start off with right the top line: Connor
Hmm.
McDavid, Zach Hyman. Usually
Yep.
with them, it's Ryan Nugent Hopkins. They've been
Hmm.
excellent all year, right? And I don't think it's a hot take if I say a top five defensive pairing in the league with Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard, who,
Fair
by
enough.
the way, who just recently passed record. He has the most points of any Oilers defenseman since Chris Pronger back in 2006. So
Fair enough.
if we thought the Nurse contract was heavy, this guy is going to get paid. I'm If he doesn't get paid double digits, I'll be surprised, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, like the Connor Brown is still somehow in the lineup, right? I'm not sure why.
Are we
And
still on goal watch for Connor Brown, or has he
yes,
broken
we
through
are.
that yet? Oh my God, that is
Yes, we are.
terrible. Do you know exactly how many days it's been? I swear it's some like ridiculous number. He hasn't scored in like 2 years almost.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Mm,
I think he only played like what 5 games or something last year, right? And then
yeah.
this year, it's just the problem that like with Connor Brown, honestly, it's not even how he's playing. Like he's a bottom
Hmm.
six guy, right? But it's because of his contract and the whole like his bonus kicking in after 10 games, and we now he's going to cost us 3.25 million next year against the cap, and
Hmm.
he's not even signed for next year. So
Yep.
he could be playing for someone else, and we'll still have that on the hook for us. So that's a
Fair
surprise.
enough.
But
Hmm.
the Oilers, their decor especially has been it's well outside of Ekholm and Bouchard has been a little bit shaky recently,
Hmm.
right? And Cody Cece, I don't
Hmm.
to this day I still don't know how this guy has managed to keep a job on the top four of a defensive team. Like I don't
Yeah.
understand it, right? No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me go on a rant for a bit. I'm sorry. So
Go for it. Go for it.
with every defenseman, right? You know what? Well,
Hmm.
not every, but with most like top four defensemen, you know what they're good at. You know what they're not good at, right? Like with Evan
Yep.
Bouchard, is he the greatest defensively? No, but offensively, he's one of the best defensemen in the league, right? Darnell
Yep.
Nurse, big physical
Yep.
guy, occasionally does a little
Hmm.
bit too much, right? If he was making,
Hmm.
I think 7 mil, nobody would say a word, right?
Hmm.
But with Cody Cece, okay, what does he do? He's not the
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of physical, but he's kind of not, right? He's not
Mm-hmm.
good when he's not useful offensively, right? He's not.
Mm-hmm.
He's very mediocre defensively, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's just I don't understand how there are still some contingent in the Oilers media who think that you can continue with Cody Ceci as your as a top four defenseman. Like I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. And last year against Vegas, especially, this
Yeah.
he was getting killed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because and he make and the other thing is he makes Darnell Nurse look so much worse because Nurse always has
Mm-hmm.
to cover up for his mistakes. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
that sucks. But other than that, I'm not too I'm not too scared. Corey Perry's been
Yeah.
wonderful,
That's
right?
good to hear.
So yeah, it's all right.
Who would have thought, that would be the guy on your team considering, those Anaheim Edmonton series were
Uh,
pretty taunting for you guys back in a couple years back, you know.
oh
Um
yeah.
yeah, but once again, is there anyone, you're specifically, keeping an eye out that, the Oilers should be targeting this player come trade deadline day, or do we have is it sort of up in the air as to what Ken Holland is going to do? Because, I've heard the rumors of Gensel. I've heard some rumors about Buchnevich. I've heard, you guys are looking for someone to help bolster that top six. But, if there's any player that you specifically think would be, the perfect fit, for this team, what would it be? Who would you really give a name for?
I mean, the Gensel thing, I understand why it's out there, right? But realistically, I don't
Hmm.
see it because number one, I highly doubt. Like I don't know, for some reason, I know like Edmonton's good now and still, but I
Yeah.
don't really feel like Jake Gensel's gonna get traded, right?
Hmm.
And I don't even feel like Edmonton can really afford to re-sign him after this year, just because of our cap situation, and I don't know
Yeah.
if he'd even be willing to re-sign in Edmonton, right? So
Fair
that's
enough.
a that's a concern. But for me, like
Hmm.
my dream shopping list would be like Buchnevich for sure, right? Because
Hmm.
I think he's the perfect guy to put next to Leon Draisaitl, right?
Hmm.
And you can just bolster that top six. You can put like Warren Fogle, Leon Draisaitl, and Buchnevich on our second line, right? That way you can move Evander Kane down the line and put him with Corey Perry and like
Yeah.
either Dylan Holloway, and that can basically be like your I mean I don't want I mean depending on the language, but you get what I'm saying. It'll be your Florida Panthers line. Let's
It
call it
will be it will be the it will be the I call it the pain in the ass line basically, because
exactly.
that's what it will be.
Oh
And
yeah,
I'm so excited to see Evander Kane and Corey Perry on the same team come playoff time, because
same.
that's exactly the type of, you know, grit and sort of just annoyingness of players that you need for this
Right.
team.
Like
Considering how tight and how physical playoff hockey can get.
oh yeah,
Hmm.
and in Edmonton's case, they're probably going to play Vegas in the first round just from how the standings are looking, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I'll put it this way, right?
Yep.
I think that having Corey Perry, the stuff that he does, and to be honest, he's been a pretty good playoff performer ever since
Yep.
like the last few years, right? And that would be like number one. So Buchnevich, I think, would be a really good at, and
Yep.
anybody to replace Cody Ceci. If that's Sean Walker, I I'm hoping Alexander Carrier, right?
Yeah.
Or or a Nick Jensen from the Washington Capitals if he's available, right?
Those seem like pretty solid options. I know Sean Walker's name has been out there for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And but
Yeah.
apparently like I think it's trending towards like an extension now for Sean
Hmm.
Walker in Philly, right? So
Hmm.
and I don't know, I don't because the asking price for him apparently it was a first, right? It used to be two first round picks until the Chris Tanga deal, Jim Gill masterclass by the way. But
Hmm.
I don't know if Sean Walker is going to end up leaving Philly. So
Yeah. And
personally, I think
Philly's been pretty decent, and they're competitive. So there's a really good chance they want to hold on to guys, should they make a push for the playoffs, considering they're still sitting pretty decently in that third spot in the Metro.
right.
Um, the one question I've had regarding the Oilers is do you have faith in this goaltending, going forward? is this a, a Skinner and I'm assuming Calvin Pickard would be,
Yes.
your duo, your tandem going in. Do you have faith that this is the right duo, or should Ken Holland be looking at goaltending as well?
I mean, I don't want to say that I have like complete faith, right? Because like, and Stuart Skinner, he's been really good recently, right? And
Yeah.
ever since like that horrible start, the guy's picked up. He's been one of the best goalies in the West. So I'm not really
Mm-hmm.
like too worried about him. And even Calvin Pickard, when he's played, he's
Yeah.
been all right. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like I think that that a goalie should be like the last thing on Ken Holland shopping list. Like if you can get a guy, you get a guy, right? But it
Yeah.
shouldn't be like a priority, right?
Yeah.
And Jack Campbell has been like really, I think he has an above 920 in the AHL ever since his disastrous start there. So he's actually
Yeah.
been playing really well. And in the playoffs,
That's good
like,
to
if there's
hear.
an injury or whatever, right? You can just call him up. And it's just nice because Jack Campbell, like, if you ever heard him in interviews, he's like one of the nicest guys ever. So,
He is
like,
so humble. He is a little too tough on himself sometimes, and I feel like that hurts his confidence.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's good to hear. It's good to hear. The one thing that I've really been fascinated with is this looks like Canada's best shot at a Stanley Cup this year, considering how many teams are looking competitive. Do you think, if we look at out west, where, Winnipeg and Vancouver, do you think Edmonton has what it takes to hold up against those teams come playoff time? Should they come across them? I know facing Vegas in the first round is already a daunting enough task, but if you look at the other two Canadian teams in Vancouver and Winnipeg, are the Edmonton Oilers up there and willing to compete with them, or do you think there's still a bit of a gap?
I mean, if you got to look at it like in a two-prong approach, right? I think offensively we're either I say we like I'm on the team, but the Oilers,
Yeah.
right, are that's what every fan wishes, right? But I
Yeah,
think the
fair enough.
Oilers are better offensively than I would put them up against like any forward core in the league, honestly, right?
Hmm.
Because I mean, and at the end of the day, just like when it comes down to individual talent, right? I think that the
Hmm.
Oilers beat both those forward cores just because McDavid, Draisaitl, Zach Hyman now 40 he has a 40 goal season under his belt, right?
Fair, yeah.
So
We
like
we couldn't I could never have imagined the emergence of Zach Hyman in this way, especially being from Toronto. We I saw what he was like here, so to have him go crazy the way he has in Edmonton, it's as happy as I am for him, it kind of stings me as a Leaf fan a bit.
I mean, I'm really I'm really happy with the two because I don't think I'm not gonna act like I was like super like happy with the contract, right? Because again, he was a
Hmm.
guy. I think he never scored above 30 goals,
Yeah,
right? And he had two knee injuries, and we signed a guy to a 7-year deal with a full no movement clause for the first 5 years, and I think he has like a 10-team no trade or something for the last two, right? So
yeah,
I
yeah.
was concerned. I'm not concerned anymore. Even if the last 3 years are bad, who cares? Like genuinely,
Hmm.
he makes 5 million. Like that's not like sorry 5.5. That's nothing.
Hmm.
So
Which for a 40 goal scorer, you can't really say much about
no,
that. Hmm.
and but defensively is where I am concerned a bit, especially because I don't think our defense is as good as, for example, Winnipeg's, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And goaltending wise, I think Edmonton easily has the worst goalies
yeah.
of those three, and that's no disrespect to Stuart Skinner, but against Demko and Hellebuck, like
That
I don't.
that's amongst the best goaltenders in the league. And I think it'll be pretty fair to assume that Hellebuck and Demko are going to be a part of that Team USA roster in the next years.
Absolutely. And
Hmm.
against Vegas too, the guy who there's no goalie in the league that scares me more than this guy, and that's Aiden Hill, right?
Yeah.
I swear, every
Yep.
time he plays Edmonton, he turns into like God's gift to goaltending somehow.
Yeah.
So
He kind of just fell out of the sky and became a blessing for the Golden Knights. And now it looks like he's one of the best goaltenders in the league.
oh yeah,
Still regarding how many good goaltenders there are out there, but that To be honest, Aiden Hill's still my, clear pick for Team Canada as their
Same.
starter. I don't really see anyone else taking that spot as of right now. Um, but I think that sort of covers the basis of the Oilers and gives us a good rundown of where they're at. Um, you want to talk about some of the other teams around the league?
I mean, absolutely. Let's start off with the
Yeah, sure.
Vancouver Canucks, Elias
Of
Pettersson.
course. Of course. Elias Pettersson. For those who don't know, he has just re-signed with the Vancouver
Canucks.
Canucks, despite all the rumors that 8 years and $11.6 million per year. Um, let's get your initial thoughts on the deal. What do you think? Do you think
I,
do you think the Canucks had a fair deal?
I think it's a perfect deal. I mean, you're getting a guy who he's scored 100 points, I think, twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's had I don't know exactly if he's had a 40 goal season, but he's either had a 40 goal season or he's been near it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and 11.6 million, especially with the cap going up the way it is, right? And they got him for the perfect amount of time too, because they got him from, I think, like 26 to 33. That's
Yeah.
the exact amount of years that you'll
That
be
is
in, like,
that is
the
that
start
is
and
your
end of your
peak of
prime.
your career.
Right. It's a perfect deal. And like, what I have nothing but good things to say. And one
Yeah.
more thing too, right? We got to give a shout out to Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvine. I mean, they went
Yeah.
in, like, if you look at Vancouver from when those guys got into now, right?
It's a
It's a
complete
completely
turnaround.
different team.
Yeah. And to, obviously he hasn't scored 40, but Pedersen has 100-point season under his belt from last year. And he's proven what he can do. Um my only thing is I love this deal. I think it's great. I know they were probably using, the Nylander deal as a bit of a basis as to what, Pedersen's value is going to be. I think I think the biggest benefit is Pedersen took up a lot of headlines for this team over the last couple of days. And I think this is good for fans because now it's all about the playoffs and it's all about how competitive this team is going to be. So I think the struggles as of late for Pedersen and the Canucks are going to sort of be are going to be lifted away considering they've gotten this, you know, under control. This deal is done. You can just now focus strictly on the deadline next week, and then you're pushed for the playoffs. So it's good to have, you know, this sort of sense of peace around the Canucks. Because let's be honest, for most of the year, they've been the best team in the league. They've been number one in the league. And to have a story about your star player potentially not being here and getting traded or not signing shouldn't be what takes up the headlines. The headlines should be that this team is really competitive and looks like a contending team. So, I want to give the Canucks credit. Good on them for getting this done. Now let's look forward to what the next couple of months have to show.
For sure. And I mean,
Yeah.
also, right? I think we got to,
Hmm.
I think we also got to talk about, like, the back end too. Like, if you
Yeah.
look at the Canucks defense, where last year, oh, it was horrible. It was a disaster,
Oh yeah.
right? Like,
Oh yeah.
they had,
Yeah.
they had Oliver Ekman Larson on the penalty kill. That's how bad
I
the
st-
decor was.
I'm as bad as it was. I loved watching it because he felt so out of place there.
And
It. Yeah.
Jim Bang, like, I was watching, like, just like a retrospective, like, video a couple hours ago. Jim Banging, I don't know how this guy lasted as long as he did in Vancouver, right? With all
Yeah.
those horrible
Yeah.
moves. So it's
Hmm.
nice to see them get some success right now. Do I hope that they do better than the Oilers? No, of course not. But that's a fan base which has been, like, I don't want to say tortured, but they've sucked for a long time.
Oh
So
yeah. And they're
it's nice
so
to see them get their
passionate.
flowers, right?
Yeah, and they're such a passionate fan base. The league is so much more fun when the Canucks are good.
Exactly.
Yeah. The return of the Green Men. They're back. They're
Oh yeah.
finally back. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been fun to watch this year. I'm happy that Hronek's been a good enough D pair for Quinn Hughes and this team is starting to click together. That Western Conference is so tough and I think there's going to be a lot of good teams in the mix.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, but the Vancouver Canucks, it's good to hear that they have this, sort of set. Do you think they'll be making any more moves now, or do you think they hold the roster that they have?
I mean, like, if you can get, like, I don't know, like a seventh defenseman or something for, like, a 6th round pick, like something like that. I think they'll do, but
Yeah.
I don't think they're going
Hmm.
to be doing anything major. I mean,
Yeah.
in all
Th-
honesty, I still think like with
They
as
got
good as the Canucks
Lindholm.
are, yeah,
You know, they've made their big splash.
right. They got Lindholm, they got Zadorov for the third pair, right?
Yeah.
And with Demko's playing well and Casey DeSmith too, right? I think it goes really underrated. I think he's the
Yeah.
first like good backup Demko has had in forever or maybe ever, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's been a great signing. And Ian
Hmm.
Cole too has been just solid for the Canucks.
Ian Cole's been great. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yeah, they've had a
Yeah.
great like year. And JT Miller too, man. Shout out to him. He
Oh yeah.
rediscovered how to play defense.
Oh yeah, I'm so happy that he's back.
Right.
JT Miller's been such a great story. That entire team has been such a great story. Hats off to Rick Tocchet. Um, I can't wait to see what they do come April. Um, Staying just on the West Coast, we've got a bit of movement with the Calgary Flames. You wanna talk a little bit of Flames hockey too as well, considering
Uh,
what they've been up to the last couple of days.
well, I just want to say that I think Craig Conroy is doing a great job as an Oilers fan.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
in all
yeah,
seriousness, like I I think that Calgary is doing what they probably should have done because, and I know people are going to say, oh, they should sell everything, go for a rebuild.
yeah.
Realistically, just with their position, you can't because you still have Kadri locked up for I think 5 or 6 more years. You have
And he's
Huberdeau
got
there
his game
forever.
back. And he's also
Exactly.
looking like he's getting his game back.
Right. And Huberdeau, right? And I actually
Yep.
talked to one of my friends who's a Florida Panthers fan about this.
Yeah.
Huberdeau's like a weird player because he always plays best when he's with like not
Hmm.
stars on his line, but just okay guys who can like shoot and just play around him. Like when he was in Florida, he
Yeah.
got 115 points. His main line mate was Anthony Duclair,
Yep.
right? And now it looks like he found his guy in Yegor Starangovich, by the way, and that was
Oh
a
yeah.
great trade.
The emergence of Sharon Govich is great. Looking back at that deal now, who would have thought that Calgary would be having this run?
Right. And I still think that I think they should do just sell on their UFAs because it's pretty clear that Noah Hangefin's not going to resign. Because
Yeah.
if he was going to resign, we would have heard like something about it by now. So I think they should sell high on Noah Hangefin, right?
Hmm.
Just get as much
Yep.
as possible and just stay the course. Like if you make the playoffs, you make the playoffs. If you don't, you don't, right? But I think that they should just sell on their UFAs and get as much value as possible, right? Because
Yeah.
and Jacob Markstrom too. That's the tough question though. Do you
Yeah.
try
They've
to move on
decided
from him?
they've decided not to move on from Markstrom. So I think he'll be sticking around.
He has a couple more. He has a couple more years left on his deal too, right? I mean, if it's me, I
Yeah.
would still try to move him just because they have good goaltending in the system, right? Dustin
Yeah.
Wolf's been like
Dustin
a
Wolf
great
is
prospect,
emerging. Yeah.
and Dan Vladar is a solid guy you can run with for like half the season. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I would try and sell high on him because he's like what 33, 34. His value is never going to be as good as it is now. So
Yeah, and
I
his
would have
and
tried to pull him.
he's been playing really really well. This is the time you're gonna get maximum value out of a player like Markstrom.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I would have sold on him, but I mean, yeah, I think that they should just stay the course. Like if you make the playoffs, you make it. If you don't, it's whatever, right?
Hmm.
But sell on your UFAs while you still can.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Um. Yeah. They did end up moving off of Chris Tanev to Dallas. What did you think of that trade? Do you think I know they were hoping to get a first out of it, but do you think that was a good deal for the Flames?
I don't. I wouldn't say it was a good deal. I think they could have gotten more, honestly,
Yeah.
right, than they did. Because I
Yeah.
think that the winner of that trade is easily the Dallas Stars. Because I
Oh
mean, they
yeah,
don't
for
have any
sure, for
risk.
sure.
They have no
Yeah.
risk, right? Like
Yep.
they they get a guy who they can put on the top pair, right? Which is where Tanev was playing in Calgary, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can put him on the top pair, put Miro Heiskanen back on his like natural left side, right? Move Thomas
Hmm.
Harley down the lineup a little bit to the second pair.
Hmm.
And I have Dallas as my cup pick personally because I think that they're
They're
just
my dark horse to make it out of the West as well, in all honesty.
right. Like
Yeah.
such a solid team, right? And like
Hmm.
they're like the perfect. I think they're a perfect example, and I think that Jim Neal should get more credit for this, and I think he would if he played in like a market with more spotlight.
Yeah.
He went from a situation where he had his two best players on really bad, overly expensive contracts to find, and then he found young pieces, got them to re-sign on pretty good deals, right?
Yeah.
Like they had Miro Heiskanen, they had Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, right?
Yeah.
And then Matt Duchene, who I think has been the best free agent signing this year, and I don't even think it's
Oh yeah, for
particularly
sure.
close,
By far, by far.
right? And he's a guy who he could potentially re-sign there too, right? Because and he has
Hmm.
talked about like wanting to come back, and maybe they could get him at a discount because again, it is Texas, taxes
And
and
who
all that,
knows?
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that Jim Gill killed it, and I think Dallas easily won the trade. I think Calgary could have gotten maybe not a first, but like 2 seconds or a second and a third, something of that nature, right? Better than just like a prospect who, from everything I've read, doesn't really seem like a guy who will probably be like an everyday NHL player.
Yeah.
So I think that they could have gotten more for Tanga, but it is what it is at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right about that, especially when you have rumors that they're looking for a first and they don't end up getting a first. It always seems like the trade is a little underwhelming. So, you gotta as as much as I want to hate on Calgary, I still think it was fair that they moved off of him. I will say this though, from Detroit's perspective, I mean from Dallas's perspective, my bad. Um, Chris Tanev is gonna fit in like a glove. He is exactly what that team needs. And they are gonna be so fun to watch come playoff time. There's a really, really good chance that if they don't take that top spot in the Central, they're gonna have to play Colorado in the first round. And that is going to be arguably the most fun series to watch in the first round. So, for Dallas to be able to, be more competitive and pick up pieces around that'll help bolster their chances come playoff time is the right direction. This Dallas team is my dark horse pick for the West. They're gonna be in the finals. They're a really good, case to make the finals. And just in general, even if they don't put him on that first line, I've heard rumors that he would play alongside Essa Lindell on that second pair as well. And I think
Yep.
that works well too. You get a bit more flexibility with your decor. Um,
Right. It's just a
but
great
from
signing, like great
yeah,
trade.
no, it is a great trade for Dallas, and I think this puts them in a really, really good position. Um, the one thing I will say though is the one thing I will say though is I still think that if they do come across the Colorado Avalanche in the first round, they're gonna have that might be, a really difficult series for the Dallas Stars. 'Cause I don't think that first line can compete against Colorado's first line. Um,
No.
obviously, and that'll be such a fun series to watch. I hate that the NHL has their playoffs set up in this way where we have two really, really good teams having to play each other in the first round.
Right.
Um,
Like I'm a NBA fan too, right? And like just
yeah, fair
seeing like
enough.
other leagues, the
Hmm.
NHL, like for me, hockey is like the most fun sport to watch live, right? Just because
Oh yeah,
I mean,
fair
just like the
enough.
unpredictability of it and all that. The
And,
NHL
and
has
how
like the
close it
best
is.
product. It has the
Oh
best
yeah,
like on ice product, and it's like the
it is the
worst
best.
league.
It is the best made for TV sport in terms of just the hype and the excitement around certain
Right.
big moments. Is it you could there's a lot you could build up when you're watching hockey, right?
Right.
So
But it's
so
like
this
the
is just
worst
one of
league.
those. Oh yeah, but
Worst
it's the
league.
worst run. Yeah,
Like it's the worst
best
run league.
sport, worst league, of course. Yeah. Um, speaking of worst run leagues, there was rumors that Winnipeg was threatening to leave, or that there was rumors that if that attendance didn't go up, um that there was going to be relocation,
Mm-hmm.
ideas, which is so unfortunate for a Canadian team to be playing this well throughout the season and still have to worry about not being in the city.
Right.
Shows the state of the NHL, and to have the commissioner fly to Winnipeg, go on a live press conference and say we're not moving Winnipeg is sort of a tough show for the league. Um, we're down to our last 10 minutes though of this, so we'll move on to some other stories. But before I move off of that Winnipeg point, I think I think that the NHL needs Winnipeg. I think the
I agree.
NHL is better with Winnipeg, and especially for that, the fact that the Canadian TV deal is coming up in I
Yep,
think a year or so. The Winnipeg helps, get
for sure.
maximum value for that TV deal. But anyways, let's we got a couple more minutes left, so let's make a little bit more of trade deadline predictions and do
Oh yeah,
some playoff predictions.
I'm
Um,
down.
what's the next big domino to fall? Who's the next big player you think is going to get moved and
Uh,
potentially where?
Honestly, I think Adam Henrique, just because like
Adam
with all
Henrique?
the speculation around him, and he's such a
Yeah,
good fit for so many teams, half
yeah,
retained, right?
yeah,
So I think Adam Henrique is probably going to be that guy, followed by like
yeah,
it's not. I don't think it's going to be like someone big right now. It's probably going to be like Adam Henrique, Nick Dowd, right?
yeah, yeah.
Whichever one of Steeler or Sean Walker doesn't re-sign in Philly, one of those two guys, right?
Yeah.
Someone like that, I think, is going to be the next person moved.
Mm-hmm. I think
But
I think that's a pretty good choice. No Noah Hannafin for that.
no, I think it's not that I don't think Hangafin's going to get moved. I think he will. It's just I don't think he's going to be like the next domino to fall.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right? I see that like as
Yeah.
like a right on the trade deadline, like 255 Elliot Friedman tweet. Right? That's what
Yeah,
Noah
yeah.
Hangafin feels like.
The last minute blockbuster because there's gonna be interest around Noah Hannafin considering he's one of the last big pieces left on that Calgary trade list.
Decor.
Yeah. Um, I think he's gonna be a pretty interesting player to watch around. Henrique will be interesting to see. I would love to see him go to the Rangers. I think they would
Same.
they would need him well, especially with the injuries they've been facing and how good they've still been throughout the season. The Rangers are a pretty interesting team to watch. So, that's sort of where I think Henrique ends up is the New York Rangers around. Um,
Yeah.
but moving on. Uh, give me some playoff predictions. Who's your dark horse out of the West, and who's your or not your dark horse? Who's your pick to make it out of the West, and who's your team to beat out of the East?
Honestly, I can already tell you my final. I think it's gonna be Dallas, and I think it's gonna be Dallas and Florida. Because
That is crazy. I had the exact same pick.
like, I mean, the
Yeah,
Florida Panthers, right? I'll be honest, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this. Nick Cousins is one of my favorite players. Because if that guy was
he is fun
playing
to
for my
watch.
team, if that guy was playing for my team, I'd defend him with my life, right? And
Oh yeah,
at the
oh
end of
yeah,
the day, you need those kind of guys in playoff hockey. Is he dirty? Yes. Is he
yes,
like
but
a rat,
but
cheap,
so are
whatever?
the Stanley Cup playoffs. They are the dirtiest place to play hockey.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And with Matthew Kachuk and Sasha Barkov, who I think
And
like if he played in
Bobrovsky's
a
found his game back regularly. He's been a huge part of that success.
oh yeah, he's been great. And
Yeah.
even Anthony Stolar, shout out to him. He's been a great backup,
Oh
right?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Like and that decor too with like Gustav Forsling, eternally underrated. I don't think he'll ever get
Hmm.
his flowers, but he's really good. Ekblad as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Oliver Ekman Larson too, right?
Oh yeah.
Reviving his career kind of in Florida.
Yeah.
And he's been great on the bottom pair. So I think
Yeah.
Florida is the easy answer out of the East, and in the West, like Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't know what their weakness, right?
Yeah.
They don't really have a weakness. They can run four lines, right? All
They
four
have the
lines
high end talent.
exactly, right?
Hmm.
And
They
Jamie
have
Benn
the
Megan
yeah.
have been doing pretty well
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah. Hmm. And
So
they'll still and it looks like Tyler Sagan will be back come playoff time, and that'll be a big help to them. They have the goaltending with Ottinger, and Wedgwood's been a really solid backup. So I think Dallas is a really good pick. Um, I still even in the East, I've been saying this for for a lot of people, and they still don't seem to believe me. The Panthers are still the team to beat. They are still the deadliest, the most fun. They are on a tear right now. If you look at
yep.
their record over the last little bit, um, they've just kind of emerged to become like the team,
Oh
to
yeah.
beat. If you they're number one in the league right now, which is extremely unfortunate. Considering Toronto has such a tough fate because it's gonna be Boston or Florida in the first round, and then
Ooh,
whichever one they play in the first round, they're gonna have to play the other one in the second round if they make it.
that
So
sucks.
Toronto fans will forever feel the pain. Um,
That sucks.
but no, the Florida Panthers, nobody they will kick and they will fight and they will hurt you all the way to the finals until a team does that better than them. That's what worked for them last year. It's going to work for them
Right.
again this year, you know.
And
And yeah,
oh no, I was just gonna say, right? And like they
yeah,
even replaced the guys who left really well, right? Like because I
yeah,
mean Radko Gudas left, right? Their decor has still been solid, and Evan
yeah.
Rodriguez has fit in like a glove in that top six, middle six, wherever you play him, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
And Bobrovsky's back, Stolarz has been good. Like I think like Florida's just a team to beat, and
yeah,
also like even Toronto. I know there's a lot of Leaf fans who aren't a lot huge fans of what Brad Treliving's done,
yeah.
but I actually think that this roster, maybe not
It,
talent wise, it won't be as good
yeah,
playoff in the
yeah,
playoffs, but I think just in
yeah.
terms of like that type of
Playing
game, right?
style. Yeah,
Right. I think that they'll actually be better. I think Max Domi will become like Toronto's favorite son if he does something like if
yeah.
he cross checks Nick's cousin, right?
Yeah, Tyler Bertuzzi, Ryan Reeves, Jake
Right.
McCabe. You know, we've got some
Ilya
hitters on that
Labushkin,
team. Labushkin, the Boosh is back.
the Boosh is
We're
back.
running it back. Yeah. I've been saying, you know, people in Toronto are worried about how good this roster is. I've always had this issue where I feel like the team has to take a bit of a decline during the regular season to be playoff ready because I don't think those two styles of play work together, you know?
No, they don't.
So this team gives me a little bit of pause when they play certain games, but you know, I think this team with the roster they have might not look as good as it does now, but come April, I think they'll be really, really competitive because of how
Sure,
much tougher they've gotten and they needed to do that. But you know, at
sure.
the same time, that means you're gonna take a bit of a decline in the regular season. Um, I will say this though, I really like the emergence of the New York Rangers, and I think if there's
Uh-huh.
anyone that's threatening um the Florida Panthers spot, it should be the Rangers. They also have a lot of tough guys. Matt Rempe has become my like new favorite player out of nowhere.
Jacob Truba, right?
Oh, Jacob
Never.
Trouba, yeah.
I have to say this.
Bald-headed Panarin is a superstar now. Yeah.
Yo, Lafreniere, right? People were putting this guy in bust category. He's been really
Yeah.
good, and
In all honesty, I was in the same wagon. I thought he was a bust as well,
right,
but
and
he's
Capo
proven me
Caco
wrong.
too. Like
Yeah.
I know like Capo Caco's had a pretty miserable season, right? But I
Yeah.
think that if you just at worst he'll be like a good
Yeah.
defensive forward, a guy you can use on the PK second power play. Like he's
Yeah.
fine, and I think that if the Rangers can just get like one top six guy, maybe,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's all they need, right? Because Quick's
Yeah.
been great too, right? I know we're running short on
Yeah.
time, but yeah,
Yeah.
Rangers have been great, and
Yeah.
but yeah,
And
I
and
think
and
Dallas, Florida.
Shesterkin you can never count out.
Nope,
Yeah. But anyways, I think that sort of wraps up all our stories from recently. But you know, once again, thank you for joining me on today's show.
thanks for having
Um,
me on.
yeah, I will, I appreciate the time. Would you like to plug anything you're working on or anything, we should look out for from you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, check out the Intermission Snapshot podcast. It's
Yep.
me, Mitchell Fox, Adam Fluge, Jacob Christensen, and whoever is on that week.
But
We do it every other
yep.
Thursday, right? I think we have an
Hopefully,
episode
I'm
coming
trying
out
to
there.
find time to make my way on there too.
That's right. Right.
Yep.
Harsh might be on there too. And we
Yeah.
also got the trade deadline coming up, so there's some articles
Yeah.
and some pieces coming out about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for now.
Perfect. All right. Well, that wraps up our show for today. I will see everyone next time.